guys my age, their entire life had been warfare.
Right.
They did not know peace. And frankly, one of the things that we learned out in the villages and those sorts of things was the Vietnamese farmers. They didn't care who ran the central government. They just wanted to be left alone to farm their land or to fish the rivers and bring their fish to market or their rice to market. That's really all they wanted to do, and feed their family.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care if the government in Saigon was a democratic government, a socialist government, a communist government, and they didn't care. They just wanted to be left alone. And I saw the exact same thing again decades later in Afghanistan.
Right.
It absolutely struck me like getting slapped on the side of the head with a baseball bat that, oh my God, so many things have not changed.
Yeah.
One of the things as a bosun mate, as you know, we're not mechanically minded per se, but one of the things we had to do was advise the Vietnamese on maintenance of the boats. I'm not a mechanic. I'm a bosun mate. But I learned about those things, and I learned about water jets, and I learned about a little bit about diesel engines and the things you had to do. And I found that the Vietnamese, if you worked with them and you clearly wanted to help them, absolutely loved you, and they would do anything for you. You could be the worst advisor in the world as far as tactics or anything else mattered. But if you cared about them and you talked to them, you listened to them, they would do anything you wanted them to, and they would take care of you. That was a lesson in and of itself. Ralph Flores, who was an engineman first class, a Korean Navy guy. I was a third class bosun mate when I got there, just a guy in his third year of his 4-year enlistment. Mm-hmm. Ralph was a Korea guy, was on a second tour in Vietnam, took me under his wing, taught me a lot about leadership, about people, about the river, about how to react to things, and don't get too excited about anything. Because if you get too excited, the people around you are going to feel that excitement and they're not going to pay attention to what they need to do. So if you just stay calm, they're going to relax and they're going to go to their training, mm-hmm. which is exactly where you want people to go in those kind of situations. And I took those lessons, throughout my life, from the military to civilian jobs I had in a number of occasions. And it is one of the life lessons that I learned that I tried to pass on to other people. And I still mourn the passing of Ralph Donald Flores. He's an American hero, Mm-hmm. I stay in contact with his son these days, which is nice. And the next time I'm on the West Coast, I'll go and visit Ralph's grave and go and say hello to him again. But Vietnam was an eye-opening experience. I think to a great degree set me up as far as how I learned to deal with people and how I learned to deal with stressful situations. I think after I came back from there, and my boat was targeted particularly 5 separate times. My boat was the focus mm-hmm. of an ambush. I was lucky enough to escape with no more than a scrape on the back of my hand one time. That was it. Got to the point that the Vietnamese sailors always wanted to ride with the Irish guy because he had the luck. It's going to be fine, Right. And even though the boat was targeted 5 different times, nobody on my boat ever suffered a fatal injury. Other boats in those ambushes, as they progressed, did in fact suffer fatal injuries. So it got to the point the Vietnamese were like, we want to ride with him, mm-hmm. And I'm not going to lie, when I went there and as things were going along, I felt there was never a bullet with my name on it. I just knew I was going to come home. Absolutely knew I was coming home, no problem. And people say, oh, that's BS. Call it what it is, but it certainly, and not that it made me reckless.
Sure.
I still did everything I had to do, but I just never felt like, was I scared? Oh, you bet your ass I was scared. I was scared a lot. I was probably scared more in that year than ever I've been in my entire life. And anybody that tells you they went out on the river at night and they weren't scared, they're lying to you. They're absolutely lying to you. To go out and sit in what was termed a waterborne guard post, really, it was an ambush. We were setting up to try and catch the bad guys. But more often than not, they caught us before we caught them. The thing I liken it to, I spent a year as a duck in a shooting gallery.
Okay.
We'd drive back and forth until somebody shot at us, and then we shot back. And most of the time, they were bad shots, and they missed, which was great. They used some of the same weapons that's still being used in Afghanistan and Iraq today, and in Syria. What everybody now knows as an RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, we referred to as a B-40, which was their numerical designation at the time. The best thing about an RPG is when they fire it, it's going straight where they aimed it. It's not changing its course. So if you see it soon enough, you can avoid it. But when it's coming at you, it looks like it's about the size of a trash can lid, and it's all flame with a black dot in the middle of it. Unfortunately, if you see it, like I said, if you see it soon enough, you can avoid it. Sometimes not so much. I have over here on a shelf pieces of an RPG that hit my boat that I keep as a souvenir.
Is that right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So coming out of Vietnam, I was second-class petty officer, came back to a destroyer in the States. Coming home was pretty eye-opening. I mean, we had read all the stuff while we were in Vietnam about all the stuff that was going on at home about the anti-war stuff and all that, but it didn't really hit home until I got home and saw how bad it was. I had been used to people respecting people in uniform, but I came home and it was a completely different thing. I went to a destroyer out of Newport when I got home. Well, I was fine. The Navy was different. There were a lot of racial incidents in the Navy, across the Navy. And while the Navy was having trouble, the U.S. Army was effectively broken by Vietnam. It just was, because of the way the U.S. handled the whole situation. The Navy was so bad at that point. Loss of discipline, loss of all kinds of things. There were race riots on some ships, and there's no other term that can be used. There were people who will try and soft soap it as other things, but in fact, that's what it was. There were race riots on some of the larger ships.
Yeah. Saratoga was one that was
absolutely
pretty well known. Yeah.
Yep. And there were several others. So I can remember going down to the mess decks on the destroyer, and all the black kids were on one side and all the white kids are on the other side. And I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. And I remember sitting down at a table. There was a spot open. There were five black guys sitting at a table. There was a seat open. I sat down, and they looked at me like, are you crazy? And I'm like, what? I'm going to eat. And I'm like, whoa, no, this is for the brothers. And I'm like, I have two brothers. I'm okay. It was insane. And it was just, and I got to the point that it was like, you know what? I'm just going to get out of here and go get an education, and I'll come back. So I got out. I left the Navy as a second-class petty officer in June of 1972. And the interesting part was, coming back from Vietnam, I wanted to go to the East Coast. In fact, I had put in to become a crewman on the USS Constitution.
Cool.
And I filled my dream sheet out as such. And of course, when I got the answer back, well, you have to be at least 5'8". Well, I'm 5'8". You can't wear eyeglasses. Oh, okay, well, that kills that. And they said,
okay. Yeah, you got to play the role, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And they wanted, the good-looking, no blemishes, you couldn't have any pimples, that sort of stuff. So I said, all right, I'll take a destroyer out of Newport. And they said, okay, but you have to extend your enlistment by at least 30 days. And I'm like, why? And they said, you have to have X amount of time for us to transfer you to the East Coast, or we're just going to put you on the West Coast. And I'm thinking, okay, put me on the West Coast. Then when I'm done, then you're going to send me to the East Coast anyway to send me home. Whatever. So I signed a 30-day extension to my enlistment. And little did I know the effect that would have on my future, because I ended up, when I came back, the ship was headed to a round-the-world cruise. Allegedly, they got as far as the gun line off of Vietnam. But I ended up doing 4 years and 18 days of active duty.
Okay.
They released me from active duty June 1st, 1972. Had a couple of years inactive reserve time stuff. You just carried an ID card. And then went off and did, got married, had a child, go to school kind of stuff. Let me get my college education done because now I have the GI Bill. As I'm doing all that back in, and then in, let me think, 83, 84, I applied for a commission as intelligence officer. I had a college degree now, and, here's my chance to become a naval officer. Not going to be a line officer, but I'll take what I can get at this point. Went and had a great interview, all that sort of stuff. They said, yeah, this is great. We'll fill this out. And I got the letter that, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Fine. Screw you. I'll go do something else. Started getting letters, or I continued getting letters from reserve recruiters about, make your experience count. Join the Navy Reserve. And then finally I thought, you know what? I could use the extra money. So I went and saw the Navy recruiter down at the Quincy Reserve Center.
Okay.
And he asked me when I had gotten out, and I told him. And he said to me, well, for every 2 years you're out, you have to drop a pay grade.
Oh, my.
And I thought to myself, well, in that case, I'd owe you about 3. So that's a non-starter. I said, I'll see you later.
Right.
About a week later, he called me up and he said, do you know how to drive a forklift? And I said, of course I know how to drive a forklift. He said, that's great, because we can get you a time-lapse waiver, and we can bring you back in as an E5 over 6.
Wow.
And I thought, well, okay, I'll do that. 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, that'll be great. So I did that. And for a couple of years, it was fine. It was 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. I went to a reserve center down in New Bedford, and then to do down to Newport. And I was working at the Shore Intermediate Maintenance Activity in Newport and those sorts of things. And they found that they had a bosun mate with a college degree, so they decided that he should do some administrative things. So we did all of that. And then I finally got myself on a ship, USS Valdez. Ended up getting, and I wanted to go back to sea. I wanted to be on a ship again. Third class bosun mate, I got back up on the bridge on an under instruction watch, first time underway. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was like, oh yeah, I know this stuff. This is easy. I can remember this. And it just all came back, all like riding a bicycle. And it was great. And I ended up getting command advanced to first class. And at that point, I'm looking at the limited duty officer program thinking, geez, maybe there's a shot here. So I look at it, and one of the requirements is you have to have more than 4 years active duty. And I thought to myself, those 18 days are going to count now. Those 18 days count. So I put in for it, had great interview process, all the paperwork, everything was great. Everything looked really rosy. The message had come out about, yes, there were openings in my category, which was deck, obviously, nothing else available. All I wanted was deck, because deck is the only designated that's eligible to succeed for command at sea. Line, an officer of the line. So here's my opportunity. Sent the paperwork off, never heard anything, nothing happens. I go another year. The next following year, I'm at a different command. There were no openings in the deck designated, so I didn't bother to apply. A year after that, I was on USS Clark FFG 11 out of Philadelphia and then Newport, and I decided to put in for it again because you had to have more than 8 years or less than 14, and I was getting close to that 14 number when they added everything up, so I had one more shot at it. And I put in for it, and I remember the CEO of the ship said, with your age, you're probably not a non-starter. And I said, yeah, well, make them say no. And I went through the whole process again. And interestingly enough,